Welcome, Grassroots Healing. Chris Wilson here, teaching you how to be a master of your own health and an advocate of your own health. And today I wanted the topic to be on insulin. Last few videos we've been talking about type 2 diabetes, lifestyle and diet, sugars, grains, things that can kind of surge metabolic syndrome and put you on pace to being pre-diabetic. And so let me see if I got my microphone. Hang on. Alright, so yeah, we're talking about insulin, and as we age it becomes more difficult, obviously, to lose weight, and to get healthy, to lose weight, we need to understand that that's the key. To get healthy, it's to lose weight, not lose weight to get healthy. It's kind of a backwards paradigm. So one thing we need to look at is how to burn fat. Most diet strategies try to focus on calories and stimulate metabolism, but they forget about hormones. And that's the thing. Insulin is a hormone, and leptin is a hormone. And there are two key hormones that obviously play a role in both weight gain and weight loss. The hormone that stops you from losing weight is called insulin. So insulin is the hormone that puts fat not only on your body, but in the midsection. This is where we would get in the abdominal region, the visceral fat. And it prevents you from losing weight. This hormone, insulin, is called the fat storage hormone. So it's very key to understand that every time you eat, your body produces insulin to regulate sugar in the bloodstream, and therefore, turns off burning fat. So just to understand that in the presence of a tiny bit of insulin, all fat-burning hormones shut down. And anyone who has round bellies has an insulin problem. This is referred to as insulin resistance. So you can picture people walking around out there where their bellies are sticking out, call them pot belly, beer belly, belly done lopped over their belt syndrome, and things of that nature. It's because they're resistant to insulin. And when insulin goes up, so does a person in terms of their weight. When insulin goes up, a person gains weight. When insulin goes down, the body loses weight. Okay, so as I was saying, when insulin goes down, then the body can then lose weight. And in Guyton's medical physiology book, this one right here, one's similar to it. It's one of the authoritative books in all medical schools, and here he states that metabolism, all aspects of fat metabolism are greatly enhanced in the absence of insulin. And so diets that lower insulin will be the diets that work to cut weight the best, obviously. And insulin is the switch that determines whether you burn fat or whether you make fat. So we need to look at what lowers insulin. Well, cutting carbs, duh. Avoid combining protein with sugar, because when protein is metabolized by the body, it drives up insulin. So when you combine both protein and sugar, what's going to happen? It's going to double the amount of insulin produced from the pancreas released into the body, taking that much longer to regulate the insulin hormone back to its normal levels, to where it's not in the body. Excessive protein. So you want more of an ideal amount of protein at a meal, somewhere between 3 to 6 ounces at a meal, preferably. Not throughout your entire day, but just at your one-time sitting of your meal. Preferably 1 or 2 meals a day, surrounded by whole fruits and vegetables, mainly just very, very moderate amounts of fruits. And by fruit, I mean your berries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries. I like to call them brain berries because they're super good and high in polyphenol and antioxidants, and they're very protective for the brain. Lean, lower fat proteins trigger insulin more than fattier proteins. Fat tends to be a buffer for insulin. MSG, monosodium glutamate. There's a great book that I have over here by Dr. Blaylock and it's called excitotoxins, the taste that kills. And he talks about glutamate being a precursor to not just really spiking insulin by up to 200% that he states in here, but it's a marker that can lead having excess glutamate within the brain to dementia and Alzheimer's, which is being referred to as type 3 diabetes, meaning having pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes is the gateway that leads to more chronic diseases and illnesses and metabolic dysfunction within the body. So stress, belly fat is triggered by cortisol. So stress, when stress levels go up, cortisol is released, wanting you to retain the fat around the midsection, the waist, the visceral fat that's around the organs increases. And cortisol doesn't increase fat directly, but it works through insulin. And so stress increases the production of insulin by the cortisol release, and which in turn will make you hold on to fat. And frequently eating meals. So if you think about eating 6 to 7 small meals throughout the day, that's a notion that we once thought was something good, instead of eating 2 to 3 big meals at one sitting. Now we're eating smaller portions 6 to 7 times throughout a day, and so constantly eating isn't going to help you cut weight. What it's going to do is cause you to release insulin each time. And eating in general, as we said, increases the release of insulin. So if you're grazing at night, snacking at night, between meals, you're going to be spiking insulin. So these are things that you don't want to do, and especially on a ketogenic diet. As I had said on one of my videos when we were at Whole Foods, when I was looking at keto-friendly snacks, the idea on a ketogenic diet is to eat until you are full. That is one of the best things about the diet, is you eat so much that you feel satiated and full. And the reason being is because you're consuming a diet of healthy whole foods, very moderate protein, again 3 to 6 ounce portions on the plate, but the main, like pretend my hand is a plate, the main portion right here is going to be fats, and then we got a little bit here of protein, and a little bit here of maybe some berries and carbohydrates or something. And berries are carbohydrates, good carbohydrates, but just be careful with that, because that can keep you from getting into ketosis. So always having insulin production will lead to the body resisting insulin because there is too much, and this is insulin resistance. And this is again precursor to becoming pre-diabetic, leading you down the road to type 2 diabetes and other chronic illnesses. So here's some signs of insulin resistance. We talked already about belly fat, beer bellies, pot bellies, big bulging bellies sticking out. A belly fat, despite what you do, it just won't go away. That is a sign of insulin resistance. Eating healthy and you just have a plateau of weight, you could still be insulin resistant. You're maybe less cranky after consuming carbohydrates, preferably not the healthy kind, but after processed carb, like refined carbohydrates such as your wheats and grains and breads and pastas and rices. Or maybe you do have healthy carbohydrates, but because of the body hungering for the carbohydrate, you're not as irritable afterward. Your brain fog, your brain fog tends to lift whenever you get yourself metabolically flexible, that is efficient to burning fat and not needing so much food all the time, especially in the form of glucose or sugar. Your brain fog tends to go away. If you crave sugars and carbs, if you got that late night craving for a sweet, there could be something wrong. There's an imbalance in hormones there. There could be stress that is causing something for you to self-medicate with food, such as sweets, and that can be a sign of insulin resistance. Wanting to take a nap in the afternoon, having that big meal at 12 o'clock on the conference during lunch, or after the lunch after the conference, and you come back, it's 1, 2 o'clock, and then you just want to take a nap in your chair, or maybe you do. You kind of doze off, and that's because of the insulin resistance, inability to remove the blood, or remove the remove the blood from the body, remove the sugar from the bloodstream that it's causing you to dip a little and crash. Worse eyesight later in the day, a little bit more foggy or hazier during the day, and it's kind of a struggle to see, whereas in the morning time you're maybe more mental clarity and sharpness, had at a higher level of acumen, and now at night or later in the evening it's kind of foggy. I've experienced that at times. I'm only 33 and I've experienced these things, and it's amazing what how nutrition and health, lifestyle demystifies age. Now, don't get me wrong, age does play a role, and so do genetic predisposition, but by all means, your diet and lifestyle play the biggest factor. Need to, or in the middle of the night, have to urinate. So constant urination, getting up in the night to pee, is a sign of insulin resistance. Not satisfied after you eat. It means your cells are blocking the insulin. The cell is this little membrane, and the insulin comes up to the cell and is the key that opens the cell up to allow inside of the cell the glucose or sugar, so the cell can utilize it. Swollen belly as the day progresses. So you start off in the morning, flat stomach, kind of fine, and as you eat throughout your day, you notice a little, not necessarily a bloatingness, but maybe it starts off that way, but it fills into a type of swollenness, if you will, and it progresses as the day goes on. Here's some dangerous long-term side effects from insulin resistance. We've already discussed that diabetes is usually the first roadblock you hit. Well, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, but heart disease, high blood pressure can be a symptom of too much insulin in the body. A fatty liver, too much insulin. Yet again, you can have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. High cholesterol. So insulin converts sugar into cholesterol within the liver. Triglycerides. Stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's. Amyloid plaque within the brain. Again, this book right here talks about the amyloid plaque. The glutamate receptor into the brain with the amyloid plaque. So I'll just read you a short passage out of here. Excitotoxins. This is by Dr. Russell Blaylock. And this is, what is Alzheimer's disease? Dementia has been recognized for thousands of years. Hippocrates, this is the father of modern medicine, described persons with mental dulling due to fevers, which he called phrenitis. But it was Celsus in the 1st century AD who introduced the terms delirium and dementia. Aretaeus of Cappadocia classified dementia into acute and chronic types. The chronic type he associated with old age and with a stupefaction of the gnostic and intellectual functions. Revolutionary hero and physician Benjamin Rush described dementias of the aged as the brain becoming so torpid and insensible as to be unable to transmit impressions made upon it to the mind. And by 1830, senile dementia was recognized as a definite clinical disorder in the aged. But one of the more important were the sporadic reports of senility of the mind occurring before the age of 65. In fact, cases were being reported as young as age 40, and this condition was eventually referred to as presenile dementia and was considered to be a different disorder than that seen in the elderly. In 1907, the neuropathologist Alois Alzheimer, using a newly discovered silver stain, described special microscopic bodies or inclusions in the brain tissue of a 51-year-old patient dying of presenile dementia. He called those bodies neurofibrillary tangles and senile plaques. Later, he discovered these same dark inclusions in the brains of persons dying with typical senile dementia of the aged. So it wasn't until 1977 that neurologists and neuropathologists agreed that the same disease process was occurring in both presenile and senile dementia. So in other words, senile dementia was not a normal aging process affecting the brain of the elderly. They agreed to call both forms of Alzheimer's disease, that is, the presenile and senile forms, the syndrome of dementia of the Alzheimer's type, or SDAT, senile dementia Alzheimer's type syndrome of dementia of the Alzheimer's type, SDAT for short. So clinically, Alzheimer's disease is a very specific type of dementia. and we could keep on going on and on about it, but this book is a really informative book. It's a bit scientific, but it can be understood from a layperson level. It just might have to take some looking up whenever you're looking at some of these minerals or vitamins or amino acids or proteins or names or abbreviations to understand their function and what they do. But really good book. And for those who don't know, no affiliation to this book or here, the Blaylock Report, if you haven't subscribed, it's a yearly subscription, highly worth your read every morning when you're doing your duty. Pun intended. So what do we do? Can we do it with food alone? In the US, the soils are so depleted of their vitamins and minerals that your food is only as healthy as the soil it grows on. This is why I highly encourage just making a small 10 by 10 garden in your backyard to grow green leafy vegetables. Make your own compost. Save all of your vegetable trimmings, your peelings, your fruit scraps, and your food scraps. That is not fast food, obviously. Well, I mean, I guess it could be broken down, I'm sure. I just always use my leftover fruit and vegetable shavings and trimmings and scraps, throw them into a bucket, mix it with some dirt, go turn it, you know, at the end of every week or every other week or maybe even every month. Make my own compost and then dump that into my soil and mix it all around, so I've got healthy microbial soil. So it's mineral rich, nutrient dense soil, because the vitamins are going to go into the plant, and I'm telling you, it makes a difference in taste and effect on your body. Let's think about how much potassium is something that you need per day. 4,700 milligrams of potassium is needed per day. One banana has 300 milligrams. So it would take 15 bananas to get your recommended daily intake, your RDI. I usually probably reach my potassium intake, if not go over, because I usually eat 5 avocados a day, and it takes about 5 avocados to get your RDI of the milligrams needed of potassium. So getting back to insulin. Insulin is a hormone made by the pancreas. We discussed this. The pancreas is a gland that's under the left side of the rib cage. Hormones are a communication particle that are made by glands that travel through the bloodstream, and the main purpose of insulin is, again, to lower blood sugar. That is, lowering the amount of sugar in the blood, okay? Normally you have only a teaspoon of sugar in your blood in totality at any one given time, and the average person consumes 31 teaspoons of sugar per day. So insulin allows the cells to absorb glucose, which is sugar, and insulin, as we was speaking earlier, it's kind of the key, or is the gatekeeper who lets in glucose to come into the cell. So it actually unlocks the cell to allow glucose to come in. It also stores sugar in the liver and in the muscles as glycogen. So whenever you're going long periods of fasts, whenever your glucose levels are fully used up, you'll start pulling the glycogen from your muscle and liver, and it goes away. Anything extra gets converted to fat. Thus, insulin is a fat-making hormone, especially, like we said earlier, the visceral fat of the gut. There's so much more that we could go on to about insulin, but I just wanted to give kind of a small breakdown on what it does. You know, it helps the absorption of amino acids. It's necessary for your potassium absorption, what we were just discussing. It blocks fat burning. And like we said earlier, with just the minute, smallest amount, it will not burn fat whatsoever. Insulin retains sodium. So just a basic recap to sum up this whole video. Stores sugar, stores fat, reduces blood sugar. What stimulates insulin? Sugar or anything that converts to sugar, which is pretty much all food. Refined processed carbs, white flour, grains, pasta, breads, rices, protein. Sugar and protein combined will exaggerate the insulin spike even more. Excessive protein can cause increase Again, 3 to 6 ounces of protein per meal. MSG can increase insulin by, I think his book said, 200%, 300%, something ridiculous. Monosodium glutamate, MSG. It's a chemical additive put into food to make it taste better, more palatable to the taste buds. And then stress, your release of cortisol will increase insulin. Stress converts your muscle protein into amino acid, which then convert to glucose. So let's think again as we wrap this up. Things that inhibit or turn off insulin: cutting out sugar and refined carbs. And intermittent fasting will greatly help insulin resistance. Consuming fat and apple cider vinegar. We can talk about apple cider vinegar and its benefits on another video. So diabetes, as we talked about in other videos, it's a condition where your body can no longer regulate the sugar in the blood due to excessive sugar. Type 2 diabetes is really more or less a problem with the liver, not metabolizing things properly, and we can get into insulin and lean muscle mass because I'm still studying that out as well at another time. I'll cut this video for here now. Please share and subscribe this. Send it to people that you think would benefit from this information, and I appreciate you sticking in with me and watching. I'm not a doctor, so please, by no means, this is not to diminish the relationship with your licensed physician, your healthcare provider. I am an integrative health coach and a nutrition therapist, so by all means, let thy food be thy medicine, because all disease begin in the gut. So what you put in here and goes down here has a major effect of how we express and act. In the meantime, folks, you have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.